Hey guys, this is the Real Estate Podcast, and this is your host, yours truly, Matt Teifke. Real quick, before we dive in, if you don't mind, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. We want to get the message out that real estate can be for everybody. We want to share the entrepreneurship that we're learning along our journey. So before we dive into the episode, please make sure you share with your friends, and we want to continue to add value. So thank you guys, and let's dive right into the episode.
Brokers who charge you 1 month's fee and then walk away from the building. Management company that charges you a monthly fee and doesn't guarantee you performance. 2.5% of tenants that don't pay you rent on time because the underwriting process sucks and it's not efficient and it doesn't use the right technology. And then we went and we attacked the 25% of the market, and we just built better technology and performed operations to a degree that no one else has.
Showtime, Dan. Thanks for coming here. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, so this is the Real Estate Podcast, and we constantly try to give out value and get in front of people that are coming in or innovative in the business or entrepreneurial. And we're excited to have you here, Dan, because you seem to be doing some things that are changing it up a little bit. And what I would like to do is understand a little bit about how it all started and what your vision is and what you guys do. And let's see if we can add some value for some entrepreneurs while we're here.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Let's see. I can give you a very long version, a medium version, or a short version. So which one do you think we should go with?
Whatever one you feel comfortable with. I'm not in a rush. We got time. So whatever feels good to you, whatever gets the point across, happy to dive in.
Let's do that. Let's see. So let me give you 30 seconds on my background, and then maybe I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes on sort of like this story of origination, and then maybe I could give you more context about what our business is today and what is it that we're trying to solve for. I'm 28, originally born in Ukraine, built and sold one of the largest youth hostel companies in Eastern Europe, basically traditional brick and mortar business, hospitality, backpackers kind of staying for 3-4 nights, paying a premium for staying in dormitory rooms. So I've built a company in that space before. I exited in 2015 and basically started investing in prop tech, started investing in venture, sort of got into on the investor side of things, looking at what's going on with technology in the real estate and build space. And over time realized that I'm genuinely excited about the intersection of housing - apartment rentals and sort of technology, where the two meet, and what is the opportunity there. Moved to the US in 2017 and started a company in the space. It all sounds nice and easy, but when I started the company, the path was sort of very unclear. It's a difficult space to crack. It's a massive industry. It's very traditional in a lot of sense. There are a lot of people that resist change. There are certain systems that took hundreds of years to build, and now they don't want to change. The broker landlord relationship, and basically, we're seeing landlords in cities like New York that have worked with the same broker for the last 40 years, and that broker is absolutely terrible. They're doing the worst possible job in the world. They're not educating them. They're not giving them access to data. It's just just a really bad professional, but yet they have been holding the same relationships for 40 years, and basically the landlord has loyalty to them, and it's a relationship-driven business. And that relationship element of real estate often is what stands in the way of innovation, improvement, streamlining efficiency, and ultimately improving both landlord experience and tenant experience. But here, what I'm trying to say is that we got into space in multifamily with one simple idea: how do we improve experience for tenants, and how do we improve experience for landlords, and how can we become an operator in between? Because we had this crazy idea that residential real estate space will become similar to hospitality space, and people that own real estate are not necessarily the people who operate real estate. Because if you look at hotels, a publicly traded REIT owns a piece of land, and Marriott owns a brand that operates that piece of land with a building on it. It's usually two separate businesses, two separate holdings, completely separate business types, completely separate risk profile, completely separate return on investment, just very different businesses. And if you look at multifamily, very frequently it's owner operated. very frequently you see groups that both buy real estate, refinance real estate, and then basically operate it. And we think that's inefficient. We think that where the world is going is that a service layer will exist between traditional multifamily landlords and tenants. And the service layer value add will be that they're going to build the best technology, that they're going to spend weeks iterating with where do we place rent button on an app, that they're going to basically be obsessed about providing best possible customer experience because that drives retention, that drives extensions, that drives whatever, and ultimately building P&L. So we had this idea that this service layer will exist between landlords and tenants, and the space will go from unbranded to branded. We thought that, you look at multifamily, for the most part, you rent from an individual. There is a very small percentage of buildings that are, Avalons and Gray Stars and basically branded buildings, but vast majority of the market is fragmented individual to individual relationship between a mom and pop landlord and a tenant. And that's the relationship in the market. And the downside of that approach is that there's really lack of and by the way, I think I went with the longer version, so I apologize for that. Okay. So, and the downside of that approach really is the fact that there's just no predictability. There is no trust. When an individual deals with an individual, there is a problem. And that problem is lack of trust, lack of predictability, lack of standard, lack of whatever. So our approach is we wanted to become a brand that's basically, that will transform this space, that will allow to operate buildings more efficiently and generate better return on investment by providing better customer service, and that will basically build a better customer experience for tenants. Now that all sounds great and vague and unclear what that actually means, and a bunch of smoke and mirrors, but here's what it practically means. June Homes essentially comes to an owner that owns a Class B or Class C multifamily building. Typically, returns on Class B and C buildings tend to be less than on Class A plus buildings. And for the most part, it's because those buildings are sort of generating lower rents because they're in poorer condition, they have worse marketing, they're not attractive to tenants. We come to the owners that own buildings like this, and we bring them a product, essentially a flag, that they could put on the building that repackages the building and makes it attractive to customers. And that product for customers and tenants is flexible product, 1 month's minimum lease, 12 months maximum lease. So very, very flexible leasing with premiums for shorter stays. It's a customizable product where any apartment can be rented furnished, unfurnished, or partially furnished, which allows us to generate premium and generate additional revenue sources for our landlords by essentially offering that ability for tenants to click one button and furnish their apartment right on the website. And three, it's a product that's built for tenants, for streamlining tenants' experience. A product that converts better, that has better marketing, that has better distribution, that posts the listing on 50 different websites, that has better pricing, that has better, there is a team of 10 people just working on UI and UX, basically user experience on our website and app. And basically it's down to a science where every single step is converting better than traditional industry. And because of flexibility, because of upsells on furniture side, because of better marketing and better UI and UX, we can typically bump NOI of the building by 20 to 30%. And we're going to take a portion of that NOI as our compensation, but we will not charge any broker fees. We will not charge any management fees, but we will provide all the brokerage services and we'll provide all the management services literally for free to owners. That's the model. We are in 10 different markets. We operate about 3,000 units. We have about $1 billion worth of assets under management. And our sweet spot is mid-sized multifamily buildings.
That's great, man. Very exciting. So I guess what is the fee that you charge on the NOI? Is it set? Is it negotiable? How does that work?
So if you own a building and let's say you make $100,000 a year in NOI, June Homes comes in and we show you a path how you can make $140,000 a year in NOI. We're going to take a portion of that increase. And that percentage depends on the market, on the building, on whatever.
Nice. And what was the process? How long have you been building this to get to the size that you have?
We went from 600 to 3,000 units in less than 12 months. So it's a pretty scalable model. And we're going to be at 10,000 units by the end of 2022. So it's a pretty robust and quick machine that is pretty efficient and that works better with scale. The path to discovering, I guess the learning curve for us and technology building curve was at least 3 years. We've invested $20 million in building the best technology for apartment leasing and apartment management. We've built some of the best pricing algorithms and some of the best distribution systems that exist on the market. We've automated 80% of all tenant communications. 95% of our tenants never physically tour apartments and rent completely remotely, which is completely crazy for a traditional multifamily industry. You don't have to employ leasing agents. You don't have to pay broker fees to acquire tenants. Everything is done in the cloud and everything's streamlined. And we achieve that by giving people much better marketing materials. So we've been in business since the end of 2017. I would say first 2.5, 3 years was a very rough path to like finding the right business model and just like trying things and seeing what works, talking to landlords excessively, digging deep, trying to understand the entire value chain. If I pay you $3,000 tomorrow in rent for your apartment in Austin, what happens to that money? Where does it go? Who eats what? You know, what goes to the bank? What goes to building expenses? What goes to government taxes? What goes to the broker? What goes to the manager? What goes for vacancy? What goes for bad debt? And when you decompose apartment renting value chain, and you start looking at different buckets of opportunity, you realize that there is a 20 to 25% inefficiency within that value chain. You know, brokers who charge you 1 month's fee and then walk away from the building. Management company that charges you a monthly fee and doesn't guarantee you performance. 2 to 2.5% of tenants that don't pay you rent on time because the underwriting process sucks and it's not efficient and it doesn't use the right technology. And then we went and we attacked the 25% of the market, and we like just built better technology and performed operations to a degree that no one else has.
That's beautiful, man. Good job. I know that it takes a lot of work, and congrats on your success with everything.
Thank you.
What would be biggest challenges or reasons why this would not work out?
Well, workout is, let's see. So it already sort of has to a certain degree. What the question is like, what would prevent us from getting to our vision? And let me talk about that for 2 seconds. So we think that apartment renting will go from local to global, meaning that we as consumers will rent in cities where we don't live. So for example, you're based in Austin. Let's say you spend 9 months a year in Austin. I mean, Austin is a unique situation because it's just a great place to be 12 months a year. But if you look at New York, winter here is completely miserable. So maybe you're going to spend 9 months per year in New York, but then you're going to spend 1 month a year in Florida and 2 months a year traveling around the world. So we think that and you're going to start renting apartments in cities that you're not familiar with, which is a complete game changer, because what it really means now is that you're going to start renting in places that you don't understand, and you want to relate to, and you want to rent from a brand that you could trust. Just like in hotels, the reason Marriott, Four Seasons, Hilton, and other brands exist is because you are renting a hotel room in a place that you cannot go and tour yourself, that you cannot go and touch with your own hands. That's why you want brand trust. We think the same transition is going to happen here. And we think that people will rent apartments at least for a part of the year, or at least occasionally in different zip codes where they don't live, and that's not their permanent home base. And because of that, it's going to become global. And because of that, we essentially want to go and build that global brand. And we want to become that Marriott of housing, essentially a brand that has a very predictable experience. You fly to Paris, you open the same app. In the same app, you go through the exact same apartment search process as you do in Austin, as you do in San Francisco, as you do in New York, just like you do with Uber. When you land in a new city, it's the exact same flow. You hit a button, you get a cab. We want to achieve similar experience with housing. So our big picture goal is to become the household name in apartment renting on global scale. What is going to prevent us from getting it? And that means about 1 million units. So we're thinking about 1 million units. And we think we can become the largest landlord in the world that also doesn't own a single piece of real estate. So we're going to do that in a completely asset-light, capital-light fashion. What is going to prevent us from getting there? There are two major barriers. Barrier number one, every single market has unique legislation. And in some markets, it gets even crazier. You look at London, and within London, you have 6 different legislations for housing that regulate housing in 6 different boroughs. Every part of London has got its own housing council and a set of its own housing laws. And it's a nightmare to analyze that city by city and be compliant in every single market. That's bottleneck and issue number one. Issue number two is it's a relationship-driven business. You know, a lot of people leave money on the table by sticking to the relationship that doesn't work because they're afraid of change. And that's the single biggest issue with real estate. So if we can build a product that's a no-brainer to a degree, where a landlord is willing to say no to the broker that they used for the last 20 years and understand that they can make more money, better performance, create more value by trying something new, that is the second biggest barrier.
That's great, man. Just thinking out loud here, but is there a way to offer this to existing property managers and they can use it as a software so you can keep that relationship and they can kind of tap into the value that you guys can bring in some aspects?
Yeah, we coexist with management companies in a lot of different markets. And it's a very good question. It's a very good thought. The problem is not just software. The problem is both software and boots on the ground. There are certain things that you cannot do with pure software. And if you look at it, for example, your typical website where people find apartments, Zillow, Redfin, whatever that would be, they're typically making a very small fraction of the entire value that's being created. So if I pay $3,000 in rent per month times 12, what percent of that money goes to a website where I found your apartment? It's a fraction. It's a very, very, very small fraction. It's a couple of dollars per listing per day by a broker who listed that apartment. So, and there is a reason for that, because essentially housing and apartment renting is so offline and it's so local and it's so operational and it's so complex that just solving it with software is really not an option. In order to really make a change, in order to really improve experience for landlords and tenants, you need to go deeper, which is what we realized after 2 years of trying to be a pure software play. We went deeper. We found unlocks. We started, recruiting best people on the ground and working with local vendors and local partners to provide that experience.
That's great, man. What are some of the things that have helped and led you guys to the success that you found? What are is it the people? Is it the team? Like, what is it that's helped you get here?
No, I think interesting things happen when you put in one room people with completely different perspectives on the same problem. So about 70% of people that work in June today come from tech background and various tech backgrounds. And then 30% of people come from real estate, traditional multifamily, traditional property management. And when you put in one room a PhD in astrophysics, who basically spent 15 years researching universes using machine learning algorithms for NASA, next to a guy who knows how to fix a broken leaking pipe cheaper than anyone else in the world, faster than anyone else in the world, and they talk about the same problem, some magic really happens. And when you don't try to take sides, but instead you're trying to challenge every single assumption that exists in this market. Why do I don't know what the requirements are in Austin, I'm unfamiliar, but in New York, every tenant has to match 40 times rent to income ratio. In order to rent an apartment, you should make 40 times an annual income as the price of an apartment. Who came up with it? Where does it even come from? Like how old is this idea? When we started digging, this idea is like 70 years old. Mm-hmm. 70 years ago, maybe that was a thing where you basically, like somewhere around Great Depression times, you had to make a certain number of dollars to pay a certain amount of rent. But how do you deal with someone who's, has a day job of 9 to 5 in a tech startup, makes equity, spends, makes another 20% on trading stocks through Robinhood, another 10% on Ethereum appreciation in crypto, and another 15% on side hustles through Upwork? How do you even underwrite them? What requirements do you apply to them? How do you look at their technology? We challenge every single piece about real estate because it should be challenged, because most of those rules are outdated. Most of those practices are completely broken. So you gotta really ask yourself a question of how can you improve something? And then because we challenge it, we achieve better performance. Our average bad debt, so tenant default rate, is 0.005%. Market average is 5.5% nationally. So we're 100 times more efficient than the market in terms of the amount of tenant that default. because we essentially challenged every single assumption of tenant application and revamped it and re-engineered it based on data, based on logics, and based on being open to other ideas. I don't know if that really answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, I don't know if it does or not, but it's very valuable. I mean, it's like I guess a core principle to how you guys have done this is, yeah, it did answer the question, right? Is thinking outside the box and not putting any boundaries on it and getting a bunch of different perspectives. And it's cool that you have some real estate guys in there, because I often wonder, I'm a through and through real estate guy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
some of these tech companies, I'm like, are any of these people real estate guys? And I don't know if they are or not, but there's a huge component that being in the trenches and understanding those relationships does bring a ton of value. And you can't just look at data and solve these problems. And same with real estate brokerage world. Like, we have a brokerage here in Austin, and I think the brokerage industry can be disrupted in a lot of ways. But tech is definitely going to be a big component of that.
And what a lot of tech companies don't, I agree with you 100%. What tech companies don't really understand is that it's a person-to-person business. It's a business where you have to have a good reputation. You can't move too quickly and break things. Well, that's typical assumption of tech companies: move quickly and break things. You cannot do that in real estate. You have to maintain a reputation. You have to build credibility with people. What we see happening with our landlords is someone is going to give us one unit, and they're going to say, let me see if you guys are a real deal. And they give us one unit, and then in 3 months they give us 5 units, in another 3 months they give us 10 units, in another 3 months they give us another 50 units. And then we have landlords who give us 350 units because they're like, I love you guys, like, you're honest, like, you're not lying to me, like, you're keeping your word, you're transparent, like, you're making me more money than the amount of money that I've made in the past. So all of those are like, it's a unique business, and you cannot apply your typical software approach to it, ignoring all of the nuances.
Yeah. And I guess so I got 17 units here in Austin, and then 8 units in New Braunfels. Is that stuff that you guys would take on?
Austin is a really hot market for us for obvious reasons. Everyone wants to be in Austin these days, and I can't blame them. Austin is definitely on our radar. Happy to underwrite it. The process is simple. We basically get the data within 24 hours. We turn around the proposal, and we're like, here's what we can do. Here's the comparables. Here's the data. Here's how this is going to work. And you basically have a full picture, and you make a decision.
That's great, man. Yeah, let's explore it. I definitely,
sure.
Like I said, I'm a through and through real estate person. I've been doing it for 12 years. I'm 31, and nice. I know what you're saying is true. I mean, that's why I asked, like, what could make you fail, because I agree with what you're saying, and I would like to see it pan out, and I'm excited for you. And I know it takes a lot of work. There's a company here that you may or may not have heard of that I think you should look into. It's called Sunroom Rentals.
I've heard of them, yes.
Yeah, dive into them if you can. Maybe y'all team up, or it's good to at least know them, but they're primarily focused on leasing. And so I wonder, maybe there's a way to work out a deal, or just learn from them. But it's essentially like, if you're a tenant looking to lease something, it is similar to Uber in the sense that, like, you don't have to call a realtor to schedule. You just schedule it through the app, and you can go meet out there in 30 minutes or something like that. So maybe that could be something you guys add to what you do, or something like that.
Yeah, I think someone told me about them some time ago, and I just thought that they, if I'm thinking about it the right way, and if I'm thinking about the same company, I think they've really innovated a lot around how you do tours and how you show homes.
Yes.
And I thought that they've done a really good job there.
Yeah. So you might want to look into them a little more. What are ways
Nice.
that we or our listeners could add value for you?
I mean, we are growing. We're growing fast. We're trying to expand in a lot of different markets. Texas is a big priority for us. We are soon to expand to Dallas and Houston. We basically are looking for new relationship. We're also always looking for feedback. So if someone is like, hey, I listened to this guy and I think here's where he's wrong. Here's 5 things that he said that are nonsense. Call me out. Share feedback. If we can post my email or my cell phone number, the more feedback, the better. We are constantly learning. Real estate is a complex business in a way. It's simple, but it's complex. it's simple that everyone thinks that they get it. It's complex with the amount of details and the amount of like work you have to put and grind to get the results.
Yeah.
So we are like just learning, and we're humble in like what we know and what we don't know. We try to be, at least. By the way, anyone who says that they're humble are probably not humble by default. So like, I'm not sure how it works. Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of where we are.
That's cool, man. All right, last question for you. What's your number one piece of advice or something that you hold true as far as being an entrepreneur? What sticks for you, or what is, something that you're just thinking of or that's valuable?
A real estate entrepreneur or any entrepreneur?
Could be anything, honestly. You could do one for each if you wanted to. Just, I guess, something that you hold true. That would be part of, how and what's led to your success.
Okay. Well, success. I don't know about success, but let me share two things.
Well, you've built a cool company, man, and you guys are doing a lot. And I mean, you're being humble now.
Let's see. So there are two thoughts to that. So thought number one, I think, trying to find comfort in uncertainty associated with starting your own company, and like finding pockets of comfort when everything is discomfortable, and being like, okay, everything is like I have no idea what's going to happen in a month, but I know that I can build a cool presentation in the next 3 hours, and that gives you comfort and certainty, while everything else, but big picture, everything is super uncertain.
Nice.
So I've been thinking a lot about that, like throughout the years, of like focusing on like what gives you that certainty. And the second one is ability to I mean, entrepreneurship as a path is a very stressful path. It's a path associated with a lot of pitfalls, no matter how you frame it. Like every successful person has had their days. So, and if it has so many pitfalls and it has so many issues and there are so many things that are going to go wrong throughout this path, ability to take problems and basically contain them and put them on a shelf and forget about them while you're focusing on something else, to me has been a big unlock in the learning in the last couple of years. It's easier said than done. Sometimes it's impossible to do that, but like trying to get to that state where you can be like, okay, like here's the big problem that exists. I'm gonna do everything that I can to solve it. I'm gonna do everything that's in my control to solve it. Then I'm gonna put it in a little box, put a little lock pin code on that box, and then I'm gonna forget the password for that up until 48 hours from now. And you try to put it on a bookshelf and forget about it and focus on what's in your control versus like losing sleep over something. Those two things I've been thinking a lot about.
That's great, man. Very cool. That's some wise words from Dan here.
Oh my God.
Hey man, if you make it to Austin, give us a shout. I would look into Sunroom, and I'm excited to maybe get some of my properties under what you guys are doing. And we're here to be a resource in Austin. I've spent a lot of time networking and building relationships. So if you need any kind of connections, there's some big multifamily companies here. Happy to help you any way I can, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Absolutely,
yeah. I'll reach out to you about your units, and look, I would love to grab a coffee or a drink when I'm in town, and I'm going to be in Austin probably sometime this year. So if you're around, we'd love to spend some time together.
Come on, man, I love it. Thank you, and keep hustling, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out June Homes and Dan, and subscribe, comment, share with your friends. We're here to provide as much value as we can. Hope you guys have a great day.